Guys, welcome to the Vlad Catcher Show, the number one show for founders, execs, and entrepreneurs who are scaling their businesses. This video is presented by Warp.dev, and we have an amazing interview for you today with its founder and CEO, Zach Lloyd, about how he created and scaled this business. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, tell us, Zach, what's the origin story of Warp? How did this thing come about?
Yeah, so I started Warp, it was a little over 5 years ago. The basic idea was I really wanted to work on improving a tool that I was a personal user of. So I've been a developer for a really long time. I was an engineer at Google, and I always use this tool, which is the terminal, which is, I don't know how technical people are, but it's sort of the app that you see in hacker movies, the black screen with the green text on it. It's one of the two core developer tools that developers spend their days in. It's a really hard tool to use, and yet if you get good at using it, you can get a lot more done as an engineer. And I was looking for different ideas, and I kept coming back to like, hey, this is a tool that I use that I know millions and millions of developers use that could be a much better product. It could be much more usable. It could be much less intimidating. It could make developers feel way more powerful. Now, I had no idea how to like build a good business around that, to be clear. But the fundamental instinct was there's this thing that a lot of people are spending a ton of time in that I think could be easier to use and help them do their job better. And so that was the genesis of it.
And how does the product work? What are the core use cases of Warp?
Yeah, so it's changed a bunch since that initial insight. Today, Warp is a platform for developers to code and do development with agents. And so the way that it works, the way you can think of Warp is like it's an app that you run on your computer, and the primary interface is one where you tell the computer what you want it to do for you. And literally, you can either tell the computer in the computer's language, which is terminal commands, or you can tell the computer in English or natural language, really. And the computer or an agent will do that thing for you. So people use it for writing code. They use it for deploying codes, like running apps. They use it for debugging apps, debugging systems. They use it for we have PMs and designers who are vibe coding in it. So there's a ton of things you can do, but the fundamental interface is just like a text box that's on your computer where you ask the computer to do something and it will, try as best it can to do it for you.
Who's the ideal customer for Warp, and who's the kind of the person who pushes this product in the organization?
Yeah, so we're really for pro developers. Our like ICP or our, like ideal customer is a pro developer who is working on like an existing code base trying to build features or fix bugs. They work at a company that's anywhere from like a Series B startup to a public company, and they are looking for tools that help them do their job more quickly or more effectively. That's the ideal. Now we have, because it's such a like versatile tool, we have like 20% of our paying customers are people who are not that, who are vibe coding, who are hobbyists or whatever. But like the real bullseye for us is the professional developer.
And what works to acquire these customers, Zach?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we started by trying to like make the product visible where developers hang out. And so for us initially that was Hacker News, which is it's like a forum where developers will post news stories, they'll comment on them. This is where we got our start. This is not what we do now. But like when we were very, very early on, we're like, we need to get a core group of developers who want to try Warp. And we just put up basically a landing page on Hacker News just to gauge the interest. And we got 10,000 developers to sign up for a wait list the first day. And we got that going. And then we got some of those developers into the product. The core way that we do it now, though, is like it's largely organic. So I think like about half of our new users are coming from like just word of mouth, or maybe even more, 70%. And then we do all sorts of activities on the growth and marketing side to try to increase awareness about the product. So in no particular order, we do things like referral programs. We just did like a really cool creative campaign that was like a Western themed ad that will like run on YouTube. We put a lot of effort into like product announcements. We're on social. We have one of the biggest YouTube channels of any developer facing company, which is cool. Like even bigger than companies that are like, way like probably further along in their journey than us. So we look for places where developers hang out, and then we look to try to show the product, because it's the type of product where if you see it as a developer, you're much more likely to get it than you are through like a written description. But that's been our strategy, and it's working really well. We're growing very fast.
And your product, Warp, sounds very technical, Zach. Like
Yes.
this doesn't sound like something you can just, build out in like a week and start proving your concept.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges in building a very technical product like this?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we knew from the outset that to build Warp was going to be a big engineering effort. So it's not the type of product where you could vibe code it. I mean, vibe coding didn't exist at the time, but you needed to spend like, and honestly, it took us like a year of just building with a team of engineers to get something in market at all. And there's real pros and cons to that. So sort of, one of the cons I would say is like, if you're gonna have a team of people doing that for a year, you need to pay them. And so we needed capital like out of the gate, right? So we needed to raise a seed round. Um, and it takes longer to get feedback. And in startups, like I think the first thing you really want to do if you're starting a company is try to get a feedback loop going as quickly as possible. So like I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but on the flip side, if you build something that's harder to build, it like, you can get a little bit of advantage in terms of like a little bit of a moat around the product, and like it's a little bit harder to copy. And like even today, I think Warp is now, we've worked on it for 5 years. It's a really, it's a hard to build thing. And so there's some amount of defensibility in that. It's not complete defensibility, but like that would be sort of the advantage. And like you kind of get less competition if people like, I don't know how many people want to spend a year building something before it goes in market. So there's pros and cons to our approach.
Yeah, that's very challenging too. It's even kind of challenging to keep the team excited for a
Yes.
year while building, right?
100%. Because it's like it's this huge unknown for everyone. It's like, are we working on something that anyone is gonna care about? It's like, and to me, that's the number one way startups just don't succeed, is they build something no one cares about. And so that's a risk. People working in a startup really thrive on growth and momentum. And when it's just like, 10 people or 8 people working on a thing, and we're the only ones using it, that's like a real kind of like, how do you keep everyone motivated and believing type challenge at the beginning.
Zach, I have one more product question for
Yes.
you, which is if they're not using your solution or some alternative like your solution, what would the customers then have to do? So this way, I want people to clearly understand. Like, so
Yeah.
if they're not using this product or an alternative, what would they need to do to get the
Right.
same result?
Okay. So just to sort of position us in the market. So there's what's happening today is that fundamentally the way that software is being built is changing. And, for most of my career as an engineer, the way that you built software was you would do it by hand, is how I would describe it. So you'd open up like something that looks like Microsoft Word, and you would write code, and then you'd open up a terminal and you type commands. And like that's the old way. And if you keep doing it the old way, your company is going to just like ship less software. And there's like infinite demand for companies to ship software. It's like their number one sort of lever for progress. Doesn't even matter what industry you're in. And so we're in this new market of tools that are not for developing by hand, but are for developing with agents, or by developing by prompt. And so every company in the country or even in the world right now, if they have a software organization, the people who are running that organization are like, how the hell do we build with AI? That's just like a fact. It's a crazy thing that's happening. It's a very, very fast growing market. And when they're like, how do we build with AI? They're like, well, what are the tools that people are using to do this, and there's a few big competitors, and we're like in the mix on this, where it's like, hey, one of the tools you can use to build with AI is Warp, and they're going to evaluate us. And on the flip side, you have this bottoms up pressure that's happening, where you have individual developers who are adopting it, who are like, I want to build just by telling my computer to build things for me. I don't want to work by hand anymore because it's so much faster. So there's this big paradigm shift in this whole new market that's emerging for building with agents that we're just like, we're part of, which is cool. And it's what's happening. Like if you're not doing this, your company is gonna be screwed.
For a tech startup, 5 years is actually pretty long, dude. And in 5 years, what would you say are some of the biggest product learnings, product lessons?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a journey, I'll say that. So like we're an AI company now. Like we are very much in the space of AI development, but that's not how we started. And like the models that we use to build with right now, like the models from Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, didn't exist when the company started. The business model that we have now wasn't a thing when the company started. And so we had a totally different um like idea for how we were going to make money off of what we were building. And so, if we were going to make money off of collaboration, actually. So team features, like a traditional SaaS app in Warp. Uh and the biggest lesson is to like not be super precious about your original idea, and like listen to the market, listen to users. And so when this new technology came along, like our old thing was working okay, to be clear. But when LLMs came out and ChatGPT came out, it was like, oh, this is obviously way more transformative than this thing we were doing before. And if we were just like, well, no, we're going to plow ahead on the thing we were doing before, I think we wouldn't be having the growth that we're having now. And so, being flexible, like you could call it pivoting. It's like, it's not exactly pivoting because it's very much in line with the original mission of the company, which was to help developers ship software more quickly. But it's like we totally changed the business model. We really changed the product. And I don't know, as a founder, I think you got to be super adaptable if you want to succeed.
And I kind of have a follow-up question on this.
Yep.
So, which one decision would you say helped you scale the most? Or is it tied to this AI? Or is it tied because the AI came about that helped you kind of accelerate? Or what would you say is the one thing that helped Warp really grow?
Yeah, so our revenue started really taking off when we changed the positioning of our product. So we were positioned as a terminal, which is one of the old generation of developer tools. And when you think of a terminal, you think as a developer of a certain set of workflows that you do in it that are kind of limited. We changed our position to an agentic development environment, or just like a platform for building with agents. And that positioning change, more so than any product change. So the product changes were gradual. In fact, we'd already done a lot of the product changes. That positioning change helped change the perception of us in the market. And that actually has been like the biggest unlock. And we keep kind of leaning into this new positioning. Now the product had to support the positioning, and the product had to get a ton better, and the product continues to improve and like support the new workflow. But just like changing how we talked about Warp was a really, really big unlock for us from the growth side, which is pretty interesting. And me as like I am more of a product and engineering background, not a like growth and marketing background. So it's been a very cool, interesting like learning experience for me.
And hiring is always challenging. And there's so many different hiring lessons that we all learn. What would you say are some of your biggest hiring lessons, and which hire do you wish you brought in earlier?
Yeah, so I think, just to preface it, I think if you're starting a company, who you hire is like maybe the most important thing, honestly, maybe more important even than the idea. Like you need the idea, you need the space, you need a general sense of what problem you're trying to solve, but um, the success of the company is largely determined about whether or not you can attract really, really smart people to come believe in the thing that you're working on and help you get it going. So first off, like that, I would start with that. I would say we have tried to hire at like a measured pace. And so sort of like relative to our kind of revenue growth and like the number of like, we have 700,000 developers who use our product. We've hired like pretty slowly and methodically and put a big focus on like we don't want to change or lower the bar. We want every new person who joins Warp to increase the talent of the team. I would I feel like you can get into a situation at a startup where you think the speed of hiring is imperative over the quality, which leads you to hire people who are like maybe like not quite at the bar, and then it's a sort of slippery slope. And so we've really tried not to do that. I would say a second lesson is like if it's not working out with someone who you have hired, to move pretty quickly to like make a change, which is not fun, but it's like it just gets worse if you keep someone on the team who's not a great fit. And that's like again, that's like a hard thing to do and a hard lesson, but I think it's like super important if you're starting a company. If you hire someone it's not working, don't like let it linger.
You've been in business for 5 years.
Yep.
What were some interesting learnings that you had along the way, or some interesting lessons?
Yeah, so the biggest I mean there's a ton, and this is my second startup, so there's a lot of lessons from the first one too. The biggest thing that we've changed culturally at Warp over the 5 years is the speed at which we execute. And so here's a story of like how we screwed something up. So we had like we went to market with I think a really good single user product, and then we were like, you know what, we're going to build our business around collaboration. That's how we're doing it. We're building the business around collaboration. This is before AI. And so we spent a lot of upfront time building something that looked a little bit like Google Docs into Warp. And that makes sense. Like Google Docs is the project that I ran when I was at Google. So I was like, okay, we're gonna copy paste that template into Warp, and it's gonna work. And if it doesn't work, it's because we haven't built it well enough. And we spent a lot of time like internally building it before we released it. We like kind of validated it with customers, but not really validated it. And then like we built it, and like some people used it, but like a lot of people really didn't care. And we would have been better off had we built it in a much faster, much scrappier, more iterative way. And we call that like building something warp speed. And we literally did like a whole company culture reset around this. Like halfway through the company's existence, we're like, we don't have time for this. Like we need to iterate. We need to, put stuff out, see people like it. If they like it, you double down, you go faster. If they don't like it, like throw it away. Like don't focus on it. And we've been operating in that mode of like much tighter iteration loop ever since then. Like another example is like we don't do OKRs anymore. We used to do like quarterly OKRs, which again, I brought that over from Google. OKRs, in case people aren't familiar, it's like a planning methodology where every quarter you like set out objectives and key results, and got like we had like an OKR process. And it's just like it was like a habit from a big company that doesn't fit where we're at a startup. And so now it's just like everything we might do goes into one giant list that we prioritize, and we are prioritizing it every single week, sometimes on a shorter time frame. And so like tightening the feedback loop is like the number one thing I would advise. And that's the number one thing we learned and have changed.
And Zach, you're a technical founder.
Very
Like,
technical.
You can code, you can build things,
Yeah.
very technical. And I'd like to hear your opinion on, because now there's a lot of these AI coding tools, right? These tools that help founders build. Do you think it's possible to build a tech company as a non-technical founder currently? What's your thoughts on this?
I mean, so the funny thing is Warp does this. Like, so people use Warp to start their company as like a single business person, and they're like, make me a SaaS app that does whatever, like yoga studio bookings or like whatever their business is. And my thought on this is like, it's pretty cool from the sense of like, as a non-technical person, tools like Warp have completely made it possible to go from 0 to 1 on something. Now, can they make it so you can get to something that's like a really good business or a product of high quality? I'm like a little bit more skeptical on that, just based on where these platforms are at today. But I would say within like 6 months or a year, I would totally not be surprised if you can do it like just by prompting and get something that's like a business. I don't think you can build something that's like a really, really hard product, like building Warp or Figma or Notion or like Slack, or like these are all really, really involved products. But I think you can get to the point at least where you can validate whether people care about what you're building. Like you can get to like a really great prototype. Hell, maybe you can actually get past that and get people paying you for it. And if you can do that, that's like a huge shortcut to me, as opposed to having to go like find, a person who can be your like technical partner. But I still think at some point today you're gonna want that technical partner. You're not gonna, like, I know there's people who are like tweeting about like you're gonna be building $1 billion company with no engineering team. I think that's like bullshit today. But I think you can get further than you've ever been able to get before.
Prototyping. Basically, you're saying that for non-technical founders, these platforms allow to get to test product market fit much faster,
Definitely,
and then they would need to get.
you can definitely test product market fit, and like I don't know, like in some case you might even be able to build something like some business that generates revenue. I think people are doing that. Like people are using Warp and tools like it to build businesses that generate revenue. What I don't think you're gonna build is like the next like unicorn, like yeah. But you get pretty far. It's pretty amazing.
What's the best business advice you've ever received, Zach?
Yeah, so this advice came from one of our early investors. His name is Ali. He's a VC at a place called Neo. He was like, pick a really, really big idea and problem to work on as a founder. And like the opposite of this that I sometimes see people do is picking a niche problem because they think it's easier to like get initial customers, or it's like it's kind of easier to have to dominate a niche. Um, Conversely, the reason to pick a really big thing is that that's a thing that's like a problem that's way more likely to motivate other smart people to come work with you than fixing some niche thing. It's a problem that is likely to have investors excited because again, this is if you're doing a VC backed business, which is what I do. If you're doing a bootstrap business, it's probably a different calculus. But if you're doing a VC backed business, like those investors want the potential for a big outcome, and you need to have a big problem and a big market. Um, and so like, yeah, I think that's awesome advice. And it's like for Warp, like our mission is just helping developers ship better software more quickly. The market for automating or like improving software production is like no exaggeration, like $1 trillion market. It's super competitive. That's true, but it's competitive because it's a really big problem. And so I wouldn't run away from competition as a general principle. Like I would try to compete and find a differentiator and win in a big market, which is like, a lot of founders I think that kind of goes against their instincts.
So basically, you're saying a big TAM and to build some exciting technology, right?
Do something
Because that way
hard.
you get the right people.
Yeah, have a big mission, have a big vision. You might want to execute it really iteratively, right? So that's why I don't think this is contradicting what I said earlier. Like execute it in small bites. It's like, what is it? You don't eat an elephant. Like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. But it's like have like at least a really big, exciting vision, the big exciting market. Like that's gonna serve you way better than like I'm gonna fix some small thing. So
And you've been building Warp for 5 years,
Yeah.
5 years, and the company is doing really good. So what takes most of your time currently, Zach? Like what takes like half of your day today?
Yeah, so it's different week by week. I'm doing a lot on the sales side right now. So I'm demoing Warp a lot. I am talking to customers a lot. I'm doing a lot on the marketing side. I'm like, for better or worse, the public face of Warp. I just was on a horse filming a commercial for Warp, which is crazy. This is not stuff I thought I would be doing when the company started. And then, I still I still interview everyone who comes to work at Warp at some stage. So I do recruiting. I I am deeply involved in the product, and that's my passion. That's like the part of Warp I have to be careful not to spend too much time on, honestly. But yeah, my general mindset is I'm going to be doing wherever I think I could have the most impact for helping the company succeed is what I do week by week. And right now it's a lot on the go to market and marketing side.
Zach, what do you believe is the core job of a tech startup CEO? And the reason I'm asking this is because you're still doing several things. You're still doing sales, you're still doing
Oh
marketing, you're
yeah.
still doing product, right? Recruiting, right? Like, what is the core job that you think the startup CEO like has to do great at? Like, what should we do?
Yeah. So if you're the founder and CEO, you care about the company's success in a way that no one else who's there does. It's just like the way the incentives work out. Like even like early people who join you, they may be really incentivized by having like equity in the company, but it's not like their entire being in the way that it is for the founder. And same for your investors. Like your investors, they care, but they have like a portfolio of companies, which you are like they're making a lot of bets. And so it's kind of like at the end of the day, as a founder, like wherever you whatever you have to do to make sure the company doesn't fail is what you need to be doing. And that's like how I would look at it. Cause like the default state of startups is to fail, right? The default is like you raise a bunch of money, you build a thing that people don't want or they don't want it enough, you run out of money. Maybe you exit and like someone like hires your team, and like the startups that you hear about being phenomenal successes are definitely the exception. And so every day as a CEO, or really like every night when I'm falling asleep, I'm like, what's our biggest risk? Like, how can I have like, what can I do to mitigate that risk? And it could be something on the team side, the growth side. It could be you got to retain some key employee who wants to go take a job at OpenAI or like whatever. And that's how I would conceive of the job. There is obviously stuff that I do that other people on the team like can't do. Like I do all the investor relations and I'm like the face of the company and et cetera. But like I wouldn't conceive of it like that. I think it's like don't let the company fail is your job.
That's cool, man. I don't think I'll ever forget that, Zach. That's
Yeah.
pretty memorable. The number one job of a tech startup CEO is don't let your company fail.
Don't let it fail. It's on you. No one else is going to stop it from failing.
Yeah, that's a great quote, man.
Thanks.
And what would you say your rules and principles for building a great business, right? The two things I've kind of gotten, from you, which is a big TAM and an exciting technology, because
Yeah.
that way you can get a lot of people on board. What else would you say are your rules or principles for building a successful business?
Yeah, like I think you don't want to overcomplicate it. So you want to build something that's useful, right? The most useful thing for the most people, and it should be more useful than what the other people in your space are building, is like that's where you start. And so again, I have like a product orientation. I think there's other people who have more of a sales or marketing orientation who might look at opportunities differently than I look at them. But to me, like fundamentally, our company is going to succeed or fail based on the quality of the product, and then like can we increase awareness and can we sell it? And so I would just like the most useful thing for the most people. We kind of be like, it's almost like a utilitarianism, like going back to my philosophy days. So I do think start with that, and then the rest of it, like you have to get the team in place. There's a million things you got to do to execute on that, but if you're not at least building towards that, I think you're not building in the right direction.
Cool. All right, Zach. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man, and we talk soon.
All right, thanks, Lloyd.